and the outside of the top. I traced the outline, as you can see here, the outline of the kirar, and I measured up 2.5 inches, drew a line across, and then I traced my sound hole template. And you can get the sound hole templates off the web. They can be cardboard, you can order them from different vendors. They can be any shape you want, but I chose this classic shape, and then I just angled it to what I thought would be a pleasing, more or less, pleasing angle, because the bridge is going to go about right here. So you want the sound hole to be right, or the bridge to be in the middle of the sound hole, so approximately where these points are. Ours is going to be just slightly below that, but that's alright. So the next step is I will drill a hole where the circles are, and then use a saw and cut out the shape, and then we can sand them down. To cut out the sound hole, I'm going to use a coping saw, and the coping saw allows me to do very fine cutting. And in order to do that, I bought this pack of saw blades, and one of the blades has very, very, very fine teeth on it, and that's what I'm going to use. I installed the fine-tooth blade. I turned it to a 90-degree angle to the handle, and when I secured my wood, just so it wouldn't flop around as much, I put a piece of wood on each side just to tighten it up. And I made sure when I installed the blade, the teeth are pointing down to the handle. They're pointing down, so you're cutting on the backstroke. Just take your time and leave the line. I also happen to have this nice squirrel saw, so it makes cutting out the sun holes even easier. And all that's left to do is, using files, sandpaper on a craft stick, and anything else that you have, and just clean up to cut out to the line. Now that the sound holes are completely cut out and sanded smooth, and we'll, during the final sanding, do the rest of it, we want to set up where the braces are going to go, which we want fairly close to the sound hole, just a little bit away so you don't see them from the top, from the outside. And we'll mark the position of the braces. And we'll put on the joint reinforcing strips just like we did on the back. Now that the top is all dry, we'll remove the clamps and take a look. A little bit of the tape sticks because it's underneath. Don't worry about it. We'll just score it and cut it off. So we have our beautiful top, radius, same as our back, and so you can tell it's actually, even though this is cut away, this is quite strong. And that has to do with the cross grain reinforcement strips and our braces. I have my center lines marked on my sides, so before I took my craw off of the workboard I marked the center lines. So I line up my center lines, line them up by eye, and what we want to do is cut the braces to size. So I'm just going to make a mark. Actually, I'll make it on the inside about where these braces go. And since the craw body is symmetrical, I can do both the top and the bottom at the same time. And I want to make sure when I do the bottom, I make a note of, I'll say that will be my top, just so I keep track of how I'm doing it. And again, that looks good. So mark the length of my braces. And so I can cut those out. So I will reinstall my craw onto the workboard and work on two things at one time. So I took my lines that I traced on the braces and I cut a little bit shorter, just leave about 1/8 of an inch or a couple of millimeters on the inside, and that way I make sure that when I pull off this piece that the braces are going to fit inside the craw close enough. So my next step is I'm going to take those pieces away. So I make sure that I'm all the way down, and if I score the top a little bit, that is okay. And it should pop right off. Sometimes need a little persuasion. And we don't want to break our top, so we'll take our time. If it does in fact want to stick, we'll cut into small pieces. And sometimes smaller pieces will come off a little easier. There we go. And we'll clean this up with some sandpaper, and we want to get this nice and flush down to the top. To show you the technique I've been using, so take here's a piece of wood, scrap wood, with some 100 or 80 grit sandpaper, and get down pretty close, and there'll be some glue left. And I find I'll use my razor with the edge bent over. Now I want to be careful because, especially on this bottom one, this is going to be the edge that glues to the kerfing. So I don't want it to be gouged out because that will show in the final product. So we want to make sure it's flat, but we do want to get all of the glue off because glue will not stick to glue. So the next step is I divided roughly into thirds. It's not critical, and what we want to do is remove the excess. And the reason we're doing this is just for weight. This is extra, it's really not needed. This will be fine. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to eyeball roughly the center here. And I'll do the same with this one. And we'll carve that out later. So, just using my chisel, you see, we'll just watch. If I cut down to the almost to the line, and this just gives me a rough approximation of where this is going, so it gets rid of a lot of the wood real quickly. And then we can use whatever means want to. You could use the chisel and chisel down to the line. You can use a nice rasp. Could even use the razor. So you can see there's multiple ways of smoothing that out. And no one's going to see it, it's going to be the inside, but just from a craftsman standpoint, we want to make it as neat as you possibly can. And there you go. So I'll finish up on all the other ones. Just to show you what I am going to do here is I'm going to make the center a pyramid. So I'll take my block plane, and again the purpose is just to remove a little bit more excess of the wood to lighten up the car. And there we go. So we have part of it done. I'll just finish off the others. All the braces are now shaped, all cleaned up and ready to go. So next step is when we're done with shaping our sides, we will be cutting off a little bit of the reinforcement just to make sure it sits down flush. But other than that, we're good to go.